Red and blue lights danced across my living room walls as I stood at the door, half-dressed in off-duty sweats, staring in disbelief at the two cops on my porch. One officer, my best friend and colleague Jake, shifted uncomfortably, a faint smirk tugging at his lips. The other, a nervous rookie, scribbled furiously in his notepad as if documenting a crime novel. "Sir," the rookie began, his voice tight, eyeing me like I was some shady character. "We've received a complaint about excessive noise from your property. The report claims there's an aggressive dog posing a threat to the neighborhood." I blinked, my mind racing to process this. "Wait," I said, my tone laced with disbelief. "You're telling me someone called the cops on Ranger?" Jake let out a muffled laugh he couldn't suppress. "Yeah, man, looks like Margaret Klein's finally lost it." My eyes flicked across the street to Margaret's smug figure on her porch, arms crossed, her porch light illuminating her self-satisfied grin. Margaret, the HOA tyrant and self-proclaimed guardian of the neighborhood, radiated sanctimony even from a distance. "Are you serious?" I muttered to Jake. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Dead serious. She called dispatch, said Ranger's a public safety risk, barking, threatening people." I glanced back inside where Ranger, my German Shepherd K-9 partner, sat calmly by the couch, ears perked, tongue lolling out. "Threatening," I scoffed. "He'd lick you to death before he'd bite." Jake smirked. "I'll mark this as a non-issue, but she's been ranting at HOA meetings, claiming Ranger's out of control. She's pushing the board to take action against you." My jaw tightened as I glared at Margaret, now pretending to water her already drenched flower beds, a pathetic excuse. "Yeah, well, good luck. Ranger's barking probably keeps this street safer than her petty regulations." The next morning, a crisp letter slipped under my door, an official HOA complaint. Margaret had fast-tracked it, demanding action, alleging Ranger barked incessantly, harassing her and her guests. The only visitors I'd ever seen at her place were harried exterminators and delivery drivers, too rattled to linger. It was nonsense, but the threats were real. Fines, mandatory muzzling, or even banishing Ranger if his behavior continued. I was crumpling the paper when her shrill voice cut through the air. "Looks like you've got decisions to make, Officer Bennett," she called, her tone dripping with smugness. Ignoring her, I dialed the HOA president, Mr. Carter. He sighed through her tirade over the phone. "Now, Daniel," Carter whined nasally, "I know you're a good cop, but rules are rules. I can't ignore complaints." "Complaints from who?" I snapped. "Margaret and her imaginary posse?" He chuckled awkwardly, muttering about standards, then hung up. I slammed my phone down, glancing at Ranger, who wagged his tail as if to say, "We've got this." But it didn't stop there. Margaret escalated, launching a full-blown vendetta. Fake complaints piled up. Ranger terrorized kids at the park, a lie. Dug up her prized azaleas, another lie. Barked so loudly her windows rattled, impossible. One night, I came home to find Ranger's water bowl overturned and his leash sliced clean through. Someone had been on my property. I knew it was her, but without evidence, I was powerless. I installed a backyard camera and, that very night, caught her red-handed planting a cheap speaker in my flower bed, blasting pre-recorded barks on a timer. The audacity left me speechless. The next morning, I stormed to her house, footage in hand. "Think you're clever?" I growled. Margaret didn't flinch. "No idea what you mean," she cooed, her voice syrupy with fake innocence. I shoved my phone at her, the video crystal clear. "This says otherwise." Her smirk wavered, but she doubled down. "Can't prove anything," she spat. "I was checking for possums." "Possums?" I laughed darkly. "Practice that excuse, you'll need it." She wasn't finished. Days later, an HOA meeting convened. Margaret, armed with her doctored audio and wild stories, spun lies to the board. "She's harassing me and my dog," I countered, "tampering with my property, planting speakers. Here's proof." She sneered, but then sweet old Mrs. Thompson stood up. "I saw her," she said, voice trembling but resolute, "sneaking into his yard, placing things by his fence." Margaret paled as murmurs rippled through the room. Carter adjusted his glasses. "Margaret, we'll need to investigate this." She stormed out like a petulant child. Walking home with Ranger, I felt a swell of pride for him and gratitude for Mrs. Thompson, but I knew Margaret wouldn't back down. From my driveway, I caught her silhouette in her window, watching like a hawk. Whatever came next wouldn't be subtle. Ranger barked, not aggressively, but a warning. Yeah, I muttered, we'll watch her too. The days following Margaret's HOA tantrum were unnervingly quiet. No notes, no complaints, no glares. It felt off, like the calm before a storm. Ranger sensed it, pacing more, ears twitching at every sound. My cop instincts screamed trouble. One evening, after a late shift, Ranger was restless, growling by the back door. I flipped on the lights, expecting Margaret with another trick. Instead, I found Ranger's training toy, a bite sleeve, shredded, his water bowl spilled again. My chest tightened. Someone had been here. The camera feed was blank, wires severed cleanly. Whoever did it was skilled. I suspected Margaret, but with no proof, I was stuck. Frustrated, I cleaned up, barely sleeping as Ranger stood guard, tense. The next morning, I marched to the HOA office to report it. Carter greeted me, uneasy, as I detailed the vandalism and Ranger's stress, pointing to Margaret. His face shifted, not surprise, but something guarded, like he knew more. I get your concerns, Daniel, he said, fidgeting with a pen, but Margaret's raised issues too. What issues? I asked, wary. He coughed, flipping a file. Says Ranger barked at her car, growled when she passed her house. She's petitioning to label him a public nuisance. My stomach nodded. A nuisance? He's a trained K-9, built to protect, not menace. Carter raised his hands. I know, but she swayed some board members that he's a risk. If it's voted on, she's the one breaking rules. I cut in. I've got proof she trespassed. His expression softened. Off the record, I believe you. But without hard evidence, she's winning. That night, I realized she'd keep pushing until Ranger was branded a threat. I had to catch her in the act. I called Mrs. Thompson, who'd spotted her before. She agreed instantly. I'll watch, she said, nodding firmly. Nothing better to do than see her bury herself. For nights, Mrs. Thompson kept lookout while I upgraded my cameras, hardwired, hidden. At first, nothing. Margaret stayed holed up, only emerging for mail or lawn fussing. On the third night, Ranger's growl woke me. I crept to the window. There she was, crouching by my fence, planting another speaker in the bushes. Morning footage confirmed it. Her sneaking in, setting a barking trap to frame Ranger. Armed with it, I stormed the HOA office, where Margaret was spinning more lies about Ranger lunging at her. I played the video. Silence fell as her face flushed red. You staged this, I said, staring her down. Tampered with my property, endangered my dog. Carter went pale. This is serious, Margaret. Trespassing, damage. It's beyond HOA rules. It could be criminal. Her voice hitched. I was protecting us. He's dangerous, unpredictable. Enough, Carter snapped. We'll review this, but stay off Mr. Bennett's property. She bolted, but her humiliation only fueled her fire. The next evening, Mrs. Thompson knocked, pale. She's planning something. Saw her with a guy in a van, maybe a contractor. That night, Ranger's urgent growl woke me. A hooded figure crouched by my fence. Before I could react, Ranger barked, charging the door. I called Jake. He arrived with backup, but the guy vanished. Ranger sniffed out raw meat by the fence, reeking of poison. My blood boiled. Margaret didn't just want Ranger gone, she wanted him dead. The next morning, ignoring Jake's advice, I confronted her. She opened her door, smirking. You went too far, I said icily. Last night's over. I've got cops now. Her bravado cracked, but she blustered. I cut her off. If anything happens to Ranger, you'll regret it. I left, unsure if she'd back off, but certain I wouldn't let her win. Ranger was my partner for years. No bitter busybody would take him. Days later, the tension lingered. Margaret went silent, too suspicious. Ranger stayed close, ears on edge. The poison meat gnawed at me. Someone targeting my partner hit deep. I overhauled security, cameras everywhere, even by the mailbox. But Margaret was cunning. I needed her to think I'd let my guard down. I set a trap. Ranger in the yard at night, visible but alone. I'd watch inside, Jake and backup nearby. Ranger knew the drill. Stay cool and less provoked. I hated risking him, but Margaret's obsession was lethal. 2 nights, nothing. She didn't bite. The third night, Ranger's growl jolted me. The monitor showed a hooded man at the gate, slipping in with bolt cutters. My pulse raced. "Hold," I whispered into the radio. Jake agreed reluctantly. The guy planted a wired speaker by the fence, motion activated, mimicking Ranger's bark, not petty, but sabotage. Ranger barked sharply. The man panicked. "Now!" Jake and his partner pounced, tackling him mid-escape. I ran out, Ranger barking at the chaos. "Who are you?" I demanded. The guy squirmed. "Just checking something," he mumbled. "Sure," Jake scoffed, holding up the device set to frame Ranger. Margaret arrived in a robe, feigning shock. "What's happening?" "You know," I snapped. "Recognize him?" "Never seen him," she lied. He snorted from the patrol car. "You said pay after the job." Her face drained, but she doubled down. "No idea what he means." "We'll see," Jake said, slamming the door. By morning, word spread. The guy, Margaret's brother-in-law, cracked, admitting she hired him to fake barking, trash my yard, and plant evidence to force Ranger out so her shady developer kin could snag my property cheap. At the next HOA meeting, Carter ousted her, fines hit, and a trespass order was filed. Her neighbors turned. Her excuses flopped. That evening, I watched her brother-in-law's van get repossessed, Margaret hiding inside, shamed. Ranger sat proud, tail thumping. "You stayed cool," I muttered, scratching him. "Good boy." Exhausted, I smiled as her curtain twitched, her scowl meeting my grin. "Try again," I dared silently, shutting my door. Ranger flopped by the couch, sighing, finally at ease. Weeks later, calm settled. No glares, no schemes. Ranger relaxed, no more pacing. On patrol with Jake, we nabbed a suspicious sedan near my street. Margaret's brother-in-law again, with fake eviction notices, paint, and noisemakers for more havoc. His arrest crushed her last stand. The HOA banned her. Legal action loomed. Neighbors apologized, hailing Ranger a hero with treats galore. But I stayed wary. Her spite ran deep. One Saturday, home late, something fell off, metallic air. Ranger nudged the door. Inside, silence. Backyard gate wide, Ranger's collar and torn leash on the ground. He was gone. I called dispatch. Jake and crew swarmed, searching hours, no trace. Then Mrs. Thompson called, breathless. Saw Margaret's car leave, something furry in back, maybe Ranger. I sped to her house, Jake with me. Garage ajar. I peered in. Ranger tied to a pipe, trembling but alive, whining when he saw me. Rage surged. We busted in as Margaret emerged, shrieking, slamming the door. Jake grabbed her. "You think you can keep taking?" I warned. "He's dangerous," she spat. "You're obsessed," I shot back. "Now you'll pay." She was cuffed. Animal cruelty, trespassing, theft. The next week, Ranger got a precinct honor, the mayor's handshake, bravest K-9. Mrs. Thompson brought treats. "He's special, family," I said. Margaret's house sold. She slunk away, no goodbyes. Life normalized. Ranger barked at her empty lot, ensuring she was gone. On the porch at sunset, he nudged me, eyes loyal. "Good boy," I said, scratching him. He sighed. Head on my knee. Peace won, our bond unbreakable. Margaret's schemes failed. We triumphed.